Welcome to the deep dive. You sent over this really interesting batch of materials recently, articles, some notes, all looking at, well, how confident college students and grad students too
Yeah.
actually feel about their writing. It was
Mhm.
quite a mix, really, and it got us thinking, what's really going on when a student believes they can write well? That's what we want to dig into today.
Absolutely. And that core idea is what researchers call writing self-efficacy. Basically, it's that belief in your own ability to get the writing done successfully.
Right.
And it's so crucial, isn't it? And it affects so much more than just, the grade on one paper.
Totally. It kind of echoes through their whole academic life, doesn't it? You've got admission essays, right? Then all those term papers,
Yeah.
dissertations, oh my gosh. And even after university, just everyday professional stuff, emails, reports.
Exactly. If you don't fundamentally believe you can do it, tackling those things feels, well, way harder.
It really does.
And it's not just about churning out assignments. Some of the sources you shared pointed out that writing is also tied into how students actually learn to think in their subject area.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, how they sort of become part of that field. Being able to put your thoughts down clearly is part of really getting the material.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this writing self-efficacy thing in higher ed, we're drawing on quite a bit of research here, is that right? You mentioned a big review?
That's right. Yeah, this deep dive is mainly synthesizing a review that pulled together 50 different studies.
50, wow.
Yeah, published between 1984 and 2021. All of them look specifically at this idea of writing self-efficacy in college and graduate students.
Hmm.
So almost 4 decades of research.
Okay, 50 studies. That's definitely a solid base. So what were these researchers generally trying to figure out? What were the big questions?
Well, they tended to focus on a few key areas. First, what else seems to be connected to writing self-efficacy? What goes along with it? Second, how does this belief maybe change over time, like as students go through college?
Right, does it grow?
hmm And third, what kind of teaching approaches or interventions have researchers tried out to see if they could actually boost this self-efficacy?
Got it.
Oh.
That sets things up nicely. So let's start with those connections. What tends to go hand in hand with students feeling confident about their writing?
Okay, so the review found two things popped up most often. The biggest one, in like 70% of the studies, was writing performance.
Makes sense how well they actually write.
Exactly. You'd kind of expect those two to be linked, wouldn't you? Confidence and actual skill.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did they measure performance? I imagine that could be done in lots of different ways.
It was mainly two approaches. Earlier studies often used timed writing tasks,
Hmm.
in-class essays, that sort of thing.
Okay, under pressure.
Yeah. But later on, there was a shift towards using what they called naturalistic essays.
Naturalistic,
Yeah.
meaning
Meaning assignments that were just part of the student's regular coursework. So less of a one-off test situation, more about their typical writing for their classes.
ah, I see. More real world in a way. And assessing the quality. Were they just counting errors?
Not typically, no. The most common way, used in about 60% of the studies looking at performance, was using holistic grading rubrics.
Holistic rubrics. Right.
Yeah, so looking at the writing more broadly, clarity, development of ideas, organization, not just grammar. And this holistic approach definitely became more common over time.
Okay, got it. So they're comparing this belief in their writing ability with how the writing actually stacked up using these rubrics. What was the main takeaway? Did more confident students write better?
Well, that's where it gets a little fuzzy. The relationship wasn't super strong or consistent. It really seemed to depend on the study context.
Oh, not a clear link.
Not really strong, no. The average correlation they found across studies was only about 0.20.
0.20, which is pretty weak, right?
Yeah, generally considered weak. So maybe confidence helps a tiny bit sometimes, but it's definitely not the whole story. And what's really interesting is
Yeah.
that in over a third of the studies that measured both things, self-efficacy and performance, they didn't even report a correlation between them.
Huh. That's odd. Almost like they weren't even focused on connecting the dots there.
Maybe. Or maybe the connection just wasn't significant enough to report in those cases.
Mm.
It's hard to say for sure.
Mm.
But there were a couple of studies that found stronger links.
Ah, okay. Outliers.
Kind of. An older one from Meyer and colleagues back in '84, and another more recent one. But the review stressed these were exceptions.
Right.
For most studies, that link between feeling confident and writing well was, well, weaker than you might expect. So just feeling more confident isn't necessarily going to make your writing better based on this.
Okay, that's a really important finding. Feeling good isn't enough. Skill matters.
Okay.
Got it. What was the other factor that came up a lot? You mentioned two.
Right. The second one was writing apprehension or anxiety. Showed up in about 34% of the studies.
Anxiety about writing. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Me too. That blank page panic, right? Or worrying about judgment. It definitely feels like that could affect your confidence.
Absolutely. If you're dreading it, it's hard to feel good about your ability to do it.
Yeah.
How did they measure that anxiety?
Mostly using a standard tool, the Daly and Miller Writing Apprehension Test, or versions of it. It's a pretty well-known questionnaire for this.
Okay.
Though, interestingly, the review noted that this measure seems to be used a bit less in the more recent studies.
Wonder why. So what was the connection between anxiety and self-efficacy? Was it strong?
Much more consistent here. They found a moderate to strong negative relationship.
Negative. So as one goes up, the other goes down.
Exactly. Higher self-efficacy, lower anxiety. Lower self-efficacy, higher anxiety. The average correlation was around minus 0.49.
Okay, that's a much clearer picture than the performance link.
Definitely. And it seemed even clearer when studies used properly validated tools for both concepts. Good measurement really matters here.
Makes sense. Okay, so we have performance being weakly linked and anxiety being negatively linked. What about how self-efficacy changes over time? You mentioned studies looked at that too.
Yeah, about 40% of them tracked changes. And in many cases, they did find a significant improvement in self-efficacy over a single academic term.
Oh, good. So taking a writing course can actually boost confidence.
That seems like it often can, yeah. Studies by folks like Dowd and Goodman and Circa found that, which
Yeah.
is encouraging, right? Shows it's not fixed.
It really is. Suggests interventions can work.
But it wasn't universal.
Ah.
Some studies found no real change. A couple even found a decrease in self-efficacy over a term.
A decrease. How come?
Well, the review suggested things like maybe the study size was small, or when they measured it mattered, or maybe if students got training in self-assessment.
Ah, so maybe they became more realistic about their skills, which lowered their initial confidence.
Could be part of it, yeah. Or maybe the tasks got way harder, or they got tough feedback. Lots of possibilities.
Okay. What about longer term, like across multiple years of college?
That gets even more complex.
Yeah.
The longer studies suggest self-efficacy might go up initially, but then it could level off, or even drop again later.
Really? Why would it drop?
It seems pretty sensitive to context, changes in courses, different instructors, different expectations.
Right.
A key finding seemed to be that self-efficacy can take a hit when students move into a new writing situation, like a different type of course or a higher level of study, even if they were confident before.
So that confidence isn't always portable, huh? Feeling good about writing history essays doesn't mean you'll feel good about writing lab reports.
Exactly. It's very context dependent.
Yeah. Which leads us to think about the context of the research itself. Where did these studies happen? What kind of teaching was going on?
Good point. So where are these studies usually done?
Mostly in pretty standard settings. About 2/3 were just within a single academic term.
And the courses were usually either basic writing skills courses or maybe writing intensive courses in a specific subject.
So places where you'd expect writing to be a focus. Did they describe the teaching methods used in these courses?
Well, this was a bit surprising. In half of the studies, fully half, there was no real description of the writing instruction the students were getting.
Half. Really? That seems like a big gap if you're studying something related to learning writing.
It does, yeah. Now, maybe for some studies looking across a whole university, it was hard to pin down. But still, it means we often don't know the teaching context behind the self-efficacy scores.
Feels like a missed opportunity. But some studies did look at specific teaching methods, right? Interventions?
Yes, about 18% were intervention studies. So they'd try something specific with one group and compare them to a control group.
What kind of things did they try?
All sorts. Some focused on specific skills like sentence combining. Others tried things like trying to influence student mood first.
Mood priming. Interesting.
Yeah. Or activities designed specifically to boost self-efficacy. Also things like having instructors model the writing process, training faculty, showing examples of assignments clearly, scaffolding tasks.
Scaffolding, breaking it down into steps.
Exactly, making big tasks less daunting.
So a real variety of strategies. Did these interventions work? Did they reliably improve self-efficacy or performance?
The results were mixed. Variable effects, some showed improvements in both, some showed no change. Sometimes it depended on the specific situation. And a lot of these intervention studies had pretty small numbers of students.
Ah, Small sample sizes. Makes it harder to
Right.
generalize.
So no single magic bullet intervention jumped out from this review. It just reinforces how complex this all
It
is.
really does. What about the studies that weren't formal interventions? Did they describe any common teaching practices?
They did mention a range of things. Some focused on, grammar and style. Others taught self-regulation, goal setting, revision strategies.
Mm.
Training tutors came up, that scaffolding idea again, giving feedback throughout the process, using peer review. Lots of different pedagogical choices were mentioned across the studies.
Gotcha. So we have a sense of the context. Now, let's circle back to measurement. You said writing self-efficacy is this core belief. How did they actually measure it? Was there one standard way?
Definitely not one standard way. That's a key point. The review mentioned that some earlier work had identified 11 common measurement tools specifically for college students,
11 tools. Okay.
and 9 of those met the criteria for this specific review. Tools developed by people like Jones or MacArthur and colleagues, for example.
So there were some established options, at least. Were they used consistently?
Not really. Some were used way more often than others, like tools by Shell and colleagues, and Zimmerman and Bandura were quite common.
Right.
But one of the 11 was apparently never used again after its first publication, and several others were used only very sparingly.
Wow, okay. So even among the known tools, usage was patchy. But you said those 9 only covered some of the studies.
Exactly. This was a big finding. Over a quarter of the studies, 26% use other tools.
Other tools, like what?
Often tools that weren't well validated, maybe only used that one time.
Hmm.
And in about 6% of studies, the researchers basically made up their own tool on the fly for their study.
Made up their own, without validating it first.
Apparently so. And the review noted this tended to happen more in studies that were rated lower on overall research quality.
Yikes. That sounds like a recipe for confusion. If everyone's using a different measuring stick, how can you compare results?
It's a huge challenge for the field. Plus, sometimes they use modified tools, maybe something originally for younger kids, or not even for writing self-efficacy specifically.
Yeah.
So yeah, a real lack of consistency in measurement.
Definitely complicates things. What about multidimensionality? That term came up. What does it mean for measuring self-efficacy?
It means looking at self-efficacy not just as one single feeling, like I'm confident or I'm not, but breaking it down into different aspects. Does the tool have subscales? For instance, confidence in grammar versus confidence in organizing ideas. Or maybe confidence in creative writing versus technical writing.
Different types of writing confidence.
Exactly. Or a study might use multiple tools to try and capture different facets. The review found about 60% of studies achieve some level of this multidimensionality.
So most tried to get a bit more nuanced.
Yeah. Some older tools did have subscales, but sometimes researchers only use parts of them. More recently, though, newer tools have come out.
Like the ones you mentioned earlier, sauces and SR.
Right, those have generally undergone more rigorous testing and are designed to be multidimensional from the start.
What kind of dimensions do they look at?
Things like confidence in basic writing skills versus more complex reflective writing, even creative identity as a writer, or confidence in different stages planning, doing the writing, revising.
That sounds much more detailed. A better reflection of what writing actually involves.
It seems like a move in the right direction. The review suggested that, historically, measurement often focused heavily on the cognitive side, the thinking, the planning.
Which makes sense based on theory.
It does.
Mm.
But it might have meant that the social aspects, the context, the feelings, those got a bit overlooked. These newer tools seem to be trying to capture a more complete picture.
Okay, this is painting a really clear, if complex, picture of the research. So let's pull it all together now. What are the practical takeaways? If you're a student or an educator, what does all this research suggest we should actually do?
Right, the so what question. The review highlighted several implications that kept coming up. One is that students, especially early on, often overestimate their writing skills and confidence.
Overestimate. Why?
Well, maybe success in high school doesn't translate directly, or they just haven't developed good self-assessment skills yet for the demands of college writing.
Right.
Which, interestingly, means sometimes an intervention that improves their writing might actually make their self-efficacy score go down initially, because they become more realistic.
The you don't know what you don't know effect.
Exactly. So being aware of that potential initial overconfidence is important.
Okay, what else?
Another key thing is just recognizing that writing ability develops over time. It's not fixed. And that link between confidence and actual performance seems to get stronger as writers get more experienced.
So maybe for beginners, confidence and skill are less tightly linked.
Seems that way. Which suggests maybe assessing self-efficacy early in a course could be useful for instructors, just to get a baseline.
Makes sense.
And then a really big one, the impact of the teacher and the classroom environment. It's huge.
How so?
Instructor attitudes matter. Believing students can improve having that growth mindset, actively encouraging students, telling them you believe they can succeed, that can really boost self-efficacy.
So the instructor's belief is contagious in a way.
It seems like it. Especially for grad students, low self-efficacy was linked to burnout. And relatedly, faculty need to feel confident teaching writing too.
Good point. Can't effectively build student confidence if you're not confident yourself.
Yeah.
What about feedback? That's core to writing instruction.
Feedback is tricky. The relationship goes both ways. Feedback affects self-efficacy, but self-efficacy might affect how students receive the feedback.
Yeah.
The main advice is avoid feedback that just crushes their spirit. Demoralizing feedback is bad. The best feedback seems to be ongoing, iterative.
Iterative meaning over multiple drafts.
Yeah, not just one grade at the end.
Mm.
And make it really specific to the task at hand. But also remember, feedback on one type of writing might not automatically help with a totally different type.
Right, that context thing again. So tailored, ongoing, specific, and encouraging feedback.
Pretty much.
Any other specific teaching strategies that seemed helpful?
A few others came up. Things like providing different kinds of support for students who start out with low confidence.
Mm.
That scaffolding idea, breaking tasks down,
Mm-hmm.
offering workshops focused on the specific kind of writing needed in that discipline. Maybe doing fewer big assignments, but allowing more time for revision.
Quality over quantity.
Kind of, yeah. Trying to link assignments to course content or student interests so it feels more relevant. And just generally paying attention to writing development across a whole program, not just in one class.
Okay. And what about peers? Did peer review come up?
It did. Peer involvement and seeing models of good writing seem helpful for self-efficacy. But, and this is crucial, students need training.
Training in how to do peer review.
Exactly. How to give useful feedback, how to use a rubric, how to assess their own work too. Just throwing them into groups isn't enough. But with training, it can help both their confidence and their metacognition. They're thinking about writing.
Right, makes sense. Wow, okay, this has been a really thorough exploration. So to wrap up, the big picture seems to be what?
Well, writing self-efficacy is clearly super important for students in higher ed, no doubt about that.
Hmm.
But the research looking into it is pretty varied. Different methods, different findings, sometimes inconsistent measurement.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing more research interest lately, which is good, but it's definitely complex. There's no single simple answer to understanding or boosting student confidence in writing.
It really highlights that complexity, doesn't it? But even with the complexity, those practical takeaways offer some concrete ideas for students and educators.
Absolutely. They give us places to start, things to try, whether we're trying to build our own confidence or help others build theirs.
Definitely. And that leads perfectly into a final thought for our listeners. Based on everything we've talked about today, all this research, what one single change in how writing is taught, or maybe just approached, in higher education do you think could have the biggest positive impact on students' writing self-efficacy and ultimately their success? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.